Okay, welcome everyone to today's session. Today we're welcoming back Sheldon from Newfound Marketing. He's going to be speaking to us about search engine optimization for small businesses. And today's session is brought to you free of charge by CBDC Nortip, Grenfell Campus, and Navigate. Before we begin, we would like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated, and that they're in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups. We acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province, and we ask you to take a moment to think about which lands you may be joining us from today. So just a quick introduction here before we start. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Richard May, who is the Executive Director of CBDC Nortip. My colleague, Dr. Mary Perez from Grenfell Campus, who has been a lead on organizing these events, unfortunately had an emergency today and couldn't make it, but Mary has done a fantastic job in helping to get these wonderful events off the ground. And also a quick thank you to Steve Sharp with Grenfell ITS, who has been faithfully here supporting us throughout these events and getting through all the technical glitches that inevitably happen on any sort of live event. So I'd like to thank you all for your support and the work that you've done to organize these sessions in the Western Newfoundland and the Great Northern Peninsula. So before we start the session today, just one other quick thing. My name is Allison Rowe, and I'm the manager of Navigate. The Navigate program, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, is a program to support entrepreneurs on the west coast of Newfoundland. And that is for students, existing entrepreneurs, and new entrepreneurs. And we say even for people who don't know they want to be entrepreneurs yet, they discover a passion for entrepreneurship by attending events like this. So we offer free support to entrepreneurs, including end-to-end startup services, coaching, tools, training, mentorship, access to resources, funding, events, and networking opportunities such as this here today, and skills learning and skills building opportunities. The program is a joint initiative between CNA Corner Brook campus and Grenfell campus. And we have three service pillars. There's the Entrepreneurship Center, which is located on both Grenfell campus and the CNA Corner Brook campus. We have the Business Incubator, which is located on the CNA Corner Brook campus, and we have the Makerspace, which is located at Grenfell campus. And these programs are made possible through funding from our generous funders, ACOA, and the IET, which is the Department of Industry, Energy, and Technology. So I will introduce Sheldon now, but I'm just going to put a little information about Navigate over on the side here for anyone who's interested in connecting with us and learning more about our programs and services, or if you need support with starting your business, by all means, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. So I've just put my contact information there. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sheldon Payne, who is a digital marketing consultant. Sheldon is back for his fourth session with us now, and he's a certified Google Awards professional who's been providing small, medium, and Fortune 100 companies with forward-thinking digital marketing campaigns for over 15 years now. Prior to starting Newfound Marketing, Sheldon was the digital marketing director for M5 Communications, and he has spent time in Montreal and London, where he planned and delivered digital marketing strategies to Fortune 100 clients, including Hewlett-Packard and Chevrolet Europe, as part of their overall search marketing strategy. So we are very fortunate to have someone with Sheldon's expertise here today. And today he'll be diving into the what, why, and how of search engine optimization, or SEO, which I'm sure some of you are still wondering, what is SEO? And that is the practice of increasing the quantity and quality of traffic to your website through organic search engine results. So if you have a website, you need an SEO strategy. So I will hand it over to you now, Sheldon. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in chat and I will bring those up. Also, we're getting a little feedback. If someone has their mic unmuted, if you could please double check and make sure that your mics are muted. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Allison. So yeah, it's I feel like a regular occurrence now, like every week. Gonna get to see a lot of regular faces and everything, which is great. To dive into digital and the important role that it plays, I think, in today's world, and definitely the world of where things are going to go in the future as well. So what we want to discuss today is SEO, and this is a very broad topic. So what I wanted to do today is, and instead of trying to go very deep on a lot of the things that you can do to enhance your website, I'm just going to kind of do an overview of some of the, I think, fundamentals that if you're not currently doing, are things that you can put in place. So there is a number of things that you can do, but we'll kind of sort through, like, here's some of the actions that you'll be able to take place, hopefully, over the next couple of weeks or months to improve your overall search engine rankings and getting more traffic and more customers from search. So just a very quick, again, brief intro. So my name is Sheldon Payne, and the owner of Newfound Marketing. We've been in business since 2012. And we provide social media marketing strategies, inbound marketing strategies, SEO. We also provide digital media management for customers, and we design and develop websites as well. Right now, we currently have about 12 people on staff, and I've personally been in the space for nearly, or pretty close to, 18 years. So there's a lot on today's agenda. Some of the pieces we'll go in a bit more detail. Other pieces we won't go into too much detail. And again, the overview here that we'll go through are things that you can do. What I'd probably recommend is, once we go through some of these, kind of each of these items on the agenda, there might be some additional research you may want to look into. But if you can get these fundamentals down, you should begin to see some improvement in your rankings for the traffic that you're getting from Google, as well as the opportunity to, to get more traffic, increase the number of people who visit your website, and to get more customers. So, hopefully there's a lot here to cover. And as Allison mentioned, this will be recorded, so you might want to go back and look at this in the future. And again, even just do some additional research in terms of what you can do. So SEO, it's just an acronym there for search engine optimization, and it's basically the practice of increasing the quantity and quality of traffic from your website through organic search. And in most cases today, that search will come from Google. You may also see results coming from Bing or a DuckDuckGo or a couple of other search engines, but the prominent search engine that we want to focus on, and that you probably want to spend the majority of your time optimizing for, is Google, as that's where you would probably receive the most of your results from SEO and organic search. So it's important to focus on SEO. What I really like about it is that you put a lot of work into it, but it pulls more traffic than doing paid media. So it does take time, but once you've got your SEO engine up and running, it should bring in more traffic than what you're paying for traffic if you're doing anything like Facebook ads or Instagram ads or Google ads or display traffic. SEO should pull in more traffic than all those sources. The other great thing with SEO is that these are organic listings. So the perception from a potential customer is that these the listings, and when someone clicks on your link, they're not biased, you're not paying for it. So there's a perception there that's helped improve your brand. Again, it also helps to create your online presence and branding. So when people begin to look for problems that they want solving, getting you on top of the search engines so you can solve those problems with your solution is a great way to do that. And it also, again, helps to reiterate your online presence and your overall brand. And it builds trust in your business. So years ago, when I would do a presentation like this, typically we'd recommend, and we still do, is that if you have the chance to buy some paid search terms for your own brand, but also be there for organic, which is the free option. And it's just there to kind of really help build that trust in your potential customers, knowing, again, who you are, the solutions and problems that you solve. So just a couple of stats, for anyone who likes stats and in terms of, why you should be investing in this. Basically 49% of users are looking for Google to discover new items and products. So typically when you have a problem or an issue or a challenge, you may, Google is probably one of the first places that you're going to go. And if you can conquer those search rankings and you can be on top of those search rankings, then you have a really good opportunity of generating people who are searching for the services or solutions that you offer to becoming a customer. 50% of searches typically result in someone clicking on, whether it's a paid listing or an organic listing. And then also, I think more importantly is that, it's traffic that's coming from organic search, 65% being e-commerce. So if you're doing a lot of purchasing, a lot of that will typically come from doing SEO, having a good SEO engine in place and kind of getting yourself through there as well. And the fact that more people will probably discover your brand, and maybe your big competitors are not there, they might be there and they'll find you that way. So it's always really good to have an SEO program in place. I think another thing that's important about doing SEO, I just remember from one of our previous sessions, is the time that it takes sometimes to work on other channels, whether it's paid media or social media, and just trying to run your business, in itself, is that you can do work with SEO and it will continue to you will get rewarded because it's something that you can work on and you can focus on, and you can kind of set it and not completely forget it, but the more work that you put in, you'll begin to receive, you'll get those results 24/7, 365 days a year. So with any engine, and if you've been here now for a couple of the sessions, you'll kind of hear me talk about engine and getting those engines set up and running. With SEO, it's no different. It's a part of your overall digital marketing, and one that can really benefit your company if you can get it right. So this slide shouldn't be new to anyone who's been here for any of the previous sessions. With any initiative that you want to take on, you want to be looking at the roles and responsibilities. So in this particular case, again, it's, what other resources and skill sets that you have in house. Is this a project that you can take on yourself? Do you need additional resources and skill sets? Do you need to outsource? And this is, just as a kind of a bit of a heads up, this particular skill set for doing SEO is one that many companies will help or will want to have it outsourced. It is a very time-consuming task, very rewarding, and it can pay for itself. But it is one channel that a lot of people will kind of look for outside help on that side. The other part when you're dealing with SEO as well is that you're dealing with your website. So if you haven't built a website yet, it's you need to ask the question of who's going to build it. And then like anything, once it's built, you also need to maintain it. And that's where SEO is really important. It's not something that you can just kind of not do at all or completely forget about it. There's a maintenance piece that's super important, and you need to continue with the maintenance and look for improvement as well. And if you really want to have success when it comes to doing SEO, like anything else, any of the other channels that we have talked about over the last several months, is that you also need to look at do you have access to your website and your analytics? If you're going to invest the time and the energy to invest in, any of the digital marketing channels, you want to be able to measure the success of it, and you want to be able to have access to your analytics to know that the work that you or that someone else is putting into your website, into everything that you're doing from the digital perspective is working, and how you can make changes and tweaks to have better performance. So SEO is a process. It's an ongoing process that never ends. So what you want to be looking at here, and some of the things that we look at today, is it's kind of broken up in a couple of different areas. There's the on-page optimization and there's off-page optimization, and you kind of can follow a little bit of a process like this, and it's continually ongoing. And then from a strategic perspective, there's kind of three main areas. Again, the on-page optimization, the off-page optimization, and the technical SEO. And we'll jump in each of these and what you can do for each, as the day goes on. And basically from an on-page optimization perspective, what we're looking at here are the things that you can control on your website and the changes that you can make on your website itself that will play a factor in how Google will rank your page, and where you will appear in your website. And there's some best practices that you should put in place if you haven't already, and we'll run through those. Then there's the off-page optimization, and basically these are actions and things that you can take to work with other people, other companies and partners, other websites to bring more traffic to you, and creating that link authority and building up the popularity of your website and driving more traffic to you. And then over the years, what's become more and more important as well is the technical SEO from there. And that's basically just, what are the technical changes that makes your website run, and what can you do to make it run efficient? And again, talking about that engine, and you want to have that engine running as efficiently as possible. So there are a couple of things that we'll discuss a little bit as we kind of go through the day, and changes that you can make. One thing that I would recommend, the first two pieces, the on page and the off pages, are things that could be done by yourself or a team member. But when it comes to the technical SEO, it's highly recommended that you work with the person who's built your website or work with a professional web developer, as there's the opportunities there to to have your site to crash or to not work or not function. And again, that can cost you business. So what we're going to focus on today is, the changes that you can put in place to get, the steps that you can take to get the most from an SEO perspective. So your SEO action plan and what that should look like. With any SEO action plan that we kind of begin with, the first thing you want to begin is to begin looking at research. So you've got access to your website now. You're looking to make changes. The first thing you want to do is to go and get the Google Search Console set up. So this is a free tool that's offered by Google. If you have a website and a domain name, you can have access to this. You go and you get it set up. It typically takes maybe 10-15 minutes to get this set up. And the really good thing about this tool is that it's retroactive. So Google is always collecting information on your website, and this is really a way for you or for your team members or for the company that you may be working with, to get some insights in how your website is currently performing in the eyes of Google. And so what you should see when you have your Google Search Console set up, you'll probably see a website performance dashboard. It looks very similar to what's over here. And what'll happen is you'll kind of get a sense of, the total clicks is the number of people who's done a search on Google, and they've clicked on, a link to your website and come and visited your website. The number of impressions will be the number of people who have done a search in Google and your website has showed up either on the first page or the second page, so it'll show up there. The average click-through rate will be the percentage of people who've done a search but then also proceeded to click onto your website. And then the average position. So that will be the average position of where your website or pages on your website, where they actually rank in Google. So those are really good guidance in there, and there's a lot of information, because what Google wants to do is they want to help you as much as possible. So having the Google Search Console in place, you can also find, like, Google will actually tell you some of the challenges or issues that they may have with your site, and then you can go and you can fix those issues. And the more of those issues that you fix, the better your engine performs, the better your website performs, the higher rankings you get, the more website traffic you get, and the more customers you get. So this is a very valuable tool that's free to anyone to use, and one that if you're going to start your SEO engine, this would be the first place to start. The next place to start or to do would be to optimize your Google My Business. So I suspect that most people here probably have a Google My Business account. And basically this is a free business profile that Google has for anyone, that has a business, and it allows you to kind of show up if someone does a search, and it allows you to show up on Google Maps, that allow you to show up for Google local listings. And typically these profiles will actually be above most website results. So if you don't have your Google My Business set up, I'd strongly recommend that you do that. It's also, another thing that Google, if you have this in place, you will begin to rank higher when you've got your Google My Business in place. And also allows customers to find you as well, for certain things that they're looking for in the local area. So there's a number of features that are here, and what you want to make sure is that you're adding photos, you've added a description of your business, your phone number, the hours that you operate, your location, and I'm sure if anyone's kind of done a search, whether it's for a bakery or a restaurant or a hotel, you've probably seen a Google My Business listing, and it's super helpful for a business. So highly recommend that you get that set up. One of the things that we really like about the Google My Business today is that you can also do a Google post. So very similar to making a post on Facebook is that you can actually use Google My Business to make an announcement or a post or an offer about your business. So when people are finding you through the local listings or on a map, if you've got a coupon or a class or anything that you want to mention, that's something that you can currently do on Google. So if you do have a Google My Business, even as we discussed in our second last session, super important to kind of think about, what's something that you could post. And again, a best practice that we would typically recommend is that you maybe make one post every 7 days. So now that you've got your Google Search Console in place, you've got your Google My Business in place, the next thing that you want to do is you want to set up or you want to review your Google Analytics. So we're talking about Google here a lot, and they give you a lot of free tools, but you want to make sure you have access to those tools and you know how to use them to the best of your abilities. So with Google Analytics, what it allows you to do if you have it in place, it allows you to learn how people are finding you. So are they coming directly to your website? Are they finding you through Google? Are they finding you through social media? Are they finding you through email campaigns? Are you being referred from another website, or is someone else sending you website traffic? So it's super important that you take the time to look at your analytics and have some just basic knowledge of analytics, understand some of the metrics that are there, because again, by doing that, it can allow you to understand, the people that are coming to your website, and are they staying? Are they staying on your site for 2 seconds or 2 minutes or 10 minutes? And what are some of the things that you're doing to convert some of these, potential visitors to customers? Again, it allows you to understand your audience. And what's super helpful with doing Google Analytics and tying this into your SEO strategy is that if you use your analytics and you're looking at the content that you currently have, you can kind of use this to create more content or potentially find gaps of content that maybe you don't currently have that people are looking for, or it can allow you to also expand on content that you've been creating. Like anything, we'd always recommend that you have set up a measurement plan. If you're going to invest in doing any digital marketing or marketing at all, you want to make sure that you have got a measurement plan in place. Again, so what's the business objective? What is it that you're trying to achieve? What tactics are you doing? And with this being the fourth session that we've done now, we've talked about a number of tactics that you can do digitally for your business. What are the goals for your website? Is it to make sales? Is it to generate leads? Is it to provide education and knowledge? All those, what are the goals of that? And then how will you determine what success looks like? So if it's selling a product, obviously it's going to be sales, generating leads, how, where those leads are coming from. What's also great about having the analytics in place is that you can set yourself up with some dashboards. So these are just, some very kind of quick dashboards that you could look at on a weekly basis or on a daily basis to kind of give you some insight in terms of, how many people are visiting your website, where are they coming from, how long are they spending on your website, what pages are they visiting, and then also, what pages are converting. So, what pages are generating that lead or what page is generating that sale. And if you have that done correctly, then you can probably set up a dashboard that looks a little bit like this. And this is a dashboard that you can look at, even just for a couple of minutes a day to kind of get a sense of all the work that you're going to do and all the work that you're doing from a digital marketing perspective. Is it trending in the right direction, or do you need to make adjustments? So now that you've got your Google Search Console in place, you've got your Google My Business in place, and you've got the ability to be able to track the traffic that's coming to your current website, and you've got a measurement plan in place. The next part that you want to look at when you're going to get that SEO engine up and running is that you want to run a report or do an audit. So, you know, we actually have a free tool. There's a link down here below, and I can put it in the chat later as well, where you can actually go and you can put in your name and your website address, and we will send you back. And it's just a tool that we use, but we'll send you back basically a quick audit and report of what your website health will look like currently. What are some of the SEO issues that's currently happening with your site, and then things that you can go and fix. And if you begin to take that and you look at what are some of the things that you can fix, by making those changes and fixes, you'll begin to see more traffic coming from search engines like Google, Bing, and getting, again, more website traffic, more customers, more revenue, and the ability to grow your business, and you kind of rinse and repeat. So now that you've got your Google Search Console in place, your Google My Business, you've got your analytics in place, you've run your first report, and you come back and you've got a list of the things that you can go and fix. Well, you need to go and begin to make some of those changes. So what is it that you can do? The first thing that you can do, like we had mentioned earlier, is the on-page optimization. So these are all the things that are on your website that you have control of and that you can go and make changes. And the more of these things that you can complete and have fixed, the more that Google will, again, give you more website traffic, because you're basically, you have a full checklist, and if the more of those things you can kind of check off on the checklist, Google will see that you've got a really good fundamentally website in place, and that will allow you to rank higher and to get more traffic. So from an on-page perspective, one of the first things that you'll want to look at is what's called meta tags. And basically what a meta tag is, it's, kind of think of it like a library and books. And it's just basically ways that Google is labeling your website and the things that are on your website and changes that you can make. So some of the basic tags that we'll discuss will be the title tag. And it's just going to tell you, basically the title tag is the blue line that shows up in a Google result. We'll look at meta descriptions. The other thing too that's super important about doing the meta tags and having those set up correctly is that having the meta tags set up is great for Google, but if you're sharing links or someone else is actually sharing links from your website onto social platforms, so whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, having these meta tags set up correctly will also, provide valuable information for social sharing. So when that information is being pulled, it will come up with the proper image. It'll come up with a description of your, what that website is about or what that web page is about, and also the title of that web page. So by doing the meta tags and getting these things set up correctly, it will have multiple benefits. Just basically some sample meta tags, again, title tag, meta description, and you'll kind of get a sense of what these look like from a search engine perspective. So the first thing that you want to look at is your title tags. So the title tag basically is the title that's shown to Google users when they're putting in a search. So what you'll see here is that what's highlighted there with our Newfound marketing. So that's basically, it's telling Google the title of this page. So in a summary, like, this is what this page is about. And typically in today's world, when you're kind of also keeping your website mobile friendly, what you're looking at is you want to keep that title tag to be about 50 to 60 characters. And within that title tag, you also want to look at the keyword or one of the keywords that you're trying to drive for the search. So think about, what is it that someone's going to be searching? And when you create that title tag, then basically from there, like, that title tag should have 50 to 60 characters with that keyword in place. The next thing that you want to look at is the meta description. So basically the meta description is just a short description telling Google and people that are in the search results what your web page and what this particular web page is about. And it's a very short summary, and again, also has the benefit from a social sharing perspective to let people know exactly, a short description of what this page is about. With a meta description, you typically want to keep that to about 155 to 160 characters. And you want to keep it pretty short and sweet and to the point. The other thing you want to do is that you want to make sure you, again, you kind of keep a couple of those keywords that you're going to be doing and that you want to rank for also in your description. So how do you update meta tags? So if you're a WordPress user, what we typically recommend is that you download an SEO plugin. And the SEO plugin that we recommend for our clients is the Yoast SEO plugin. What we really like about this is that the SEO plugin, well, when you create, whether it's a page or you create a blog post, it'll kind of guide you through all the steps that will make you successful. So here's just a screenshot of what a part of the SEO plugin will look like. Again, you can kind of see here, there is the SEO title. So that's the title that we talked about earlier. So you can kind of put that in place and you'll see the marks, you'll see the lines here. So orange, you're kind of below where it should be. And if you're in solid green, then basically everything that's in green, everything should be good and optimized the best that it can. So that's one element that you want to look for. What we also really like about this plugin is that as you're creating your content and whether you're building a blog post or you're creating a landing page with a specific service, the plugin itself will also it'll scan your content and it'll give you recommendations of all the things and changes that you can make. So below are just a couple of the opportunities that exist here, and it'll kind of tell you, like, is your blog post too short? And should you make it longer? Is the title too long, too short? I'll tell you about the reading level as well. So there's a lot of valuable information here, and your goal here is that as you're creating that content on your page, you want to make sure that all of these check marks are green, and the more greens you have, the more optimized that particular page will be for Google, which then will turn into a higher traffic ranking, and will also you'll be able to drive more traffic to your website. So once you've got your title tags in place, and you've got your meta description in place, and you have that in place, the other thing that you'll want to consider that's a factor for Google as well is the URL structure. So that's basically when you go to create whether it's a landing page or a blog post, it's going to be what's the name of that particular web page, or that web page itself, and that particular post. What's the name of that going to be? You want to make sure that that's important, because it's going to be important for user experience. It's going to be important for rankings and for linking. So what you want to do is you want to keep those to be very short and sweet and not very long. And if you've got a bigger website with a number of categories, it's also really valuable to kind of be able to break those down with categories as well. Things that you'll want to avoid is that if you're using WordPress, for example, typically what will happen if you don't have this set up and put in place, what you'll see kind of like user IDs, which is the example here. And then other things as well, you want to make sure that you're kind of using dashes as opposed to hyphens. So now you've got that in place. The other thing that's super important when it comes to some of the basics for SEO is what's called alt tags. So your alt tags are basically is the images that you have on your website, and being able to label those images correctly so they better perform in Google. And what's really important here is that with the alt tags, it allows you to rank for Google images. So depending on your website and the service or product that you offer, sometimes people who are doing a search, they may not go and read the content, but they could be looking for a particular image. So if you have your alt tags in place and you've got your images done correctly, then that will actually allow you to rank higher in Google Images. And Google Images can be a really good driver for website traffic. The next thing that you want to do is to make sure that you're optimizing your images. So when you're placing images on your website, whether you're taking the images from your phone or maybe you're taking it from a DSLR camera, when you do that, those images may be very large in size, and the dimensions may be off, and they can have a negative impact on your website. So there's a couple of things that you want to do there. The very first is that you want to name those images as well. So if you take a picture on your camera, for example, I'll just kind of label it like image and then 1, 2, 3, or as we kind of see here, like 2, 3, 4 as an example. But if you begin to label those images, to be descriptive of what that image is, then that's going to allow you to show up a little bit higher, and again, to be more optimized for SEO. The other thing that's important as well, as I mentioned, is that those images that you take from your phone or from a camera, those dimensions typically can be very large. So when you add those to your website, it may impact, the look and feel of how it's going to interact with your website. And then also, typically what comes with those larger images is that those image sizes, or the file size, is also quite large. So if you take a picture from your phone or from your camera, it may be 2, 3, or 4 megabytes in size. And the bigger those image sizes, the slower your site will perform. And if your site performs really slow, then what also happens then is that it has a negative impact on your site. So there's things that you can do to bring those file sizes down. So once you've got all those things in place, the other thing that's really beneficial from an on-page perspective, again, so these are all the things that you have control of on your website that you can do, is to look at internal linking. So if you've got 50 to 100 or 200 pages on your website, sometimes what you would want to do is to be able to link from one page to another, or maybe it's from one product to another, or from one service to another. And that's really important for Google, because what it does, it actually allows Google to discover new content. And it also allows users who are coming to your website potentially for the first time to maybe to go and visit a second, third, or fourth page. And the more people, and when people come and visit your website and they stay on there and they visit more pages, then that creates a good user experience. And Google typically rewards that with with the rankings to come up a little bit further. So those are all of the kind of the on-page things that you can do for your site. Now there are other options that you can do as well, but those are the fundamentals and recommendations that we would put in place from an on-page perspective, to help improve some of those rankings. From a technical perspective, technical SEO is basically, it's the website and server things that you can do to help make your site a little bit more effective. Again, one thing that I'd probably reiterate here is that you want to get help from a web developer for if you're going to be looking at the technical SEO pieces. Some of the technical SEO pieces that you'll probably want to get help with is making sure that your site is secure. So if you go and visit a website now, you'll notice sometimes there's an HTTPS. That's an SSL certificate, and basically it just makes your site more secure. It's also a ranking factor for Google. So if you don't have a secure website, it will have a negative impact on your rankings. So one thing that you can do is to get an SSL in place, and that will actually bring you up a little bit further in the search rankings. In today's world, it's super important that you look at making sure that the site that you've built is mobile friendly. So that's very easy to do. You just go on your phone, look at your website, look at the performance of your website. So that's a technical thing that you can work on as well. Again, with the crawl errors, that's going back to the Google Search Console. That's why that tool is super helpful. It'll show you some of the technical errors that you may have in your site and things that are happening there, and again, how you can go back and fix those. And then there's things like broken links. So a broken link would be, maybe it's a site that you had on your site 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, and then you decided to remove that link from your site. So that becomes a broken link if it's anywhere else on your website. Or maybe you've shared a piece of content, or you've shared a link to someone else's site, and maybe that business is no longer exist, or they've changed the website, or they've changed the name of the link of where you were sending them to. So these are some of the things that you'll want to fix from a technical perspective, or have a web developer help you from a technical perspective to get that technical SEO to being top notch. One factor that you do want to look at is website page speed. And this is very important for Google right now, in that it's the amount of time it takes from when someone does a search, clicks on your link before your website loads. And there's a number of factors that can impact this, hosting being one. So the first thing that you want to do here is that you want to visit the link that's on the bottom. You can run your site through this, and by running your site through this, it will kind of give you a score from 1 to 100. And you kind of have the averages there. Ideally, you want to be in the 90s. You know, if not, being your average site speed will be between 50 and 89. And then if you're in the 0 to 49 range, then you'll certainly want to look at that and look to make improvements. If your site is, you know, again, in that 0 to 49 range and potentially even in the 50 to 89 range, it will have a negative impact on your SEO and the rankings and the traffic that you're going to receive. So that's something that you'll want to consider and have a quick look at. So again, taking the free SEO report that you can get from our website, and then also going and looking at the Google page speed and getting your score, will kind of give you a little bit of guidance on some of the short term and the quick wins that you can get to get those rankings and increased website traffic. So things that you can do, again, working with a web developer to improve your page speed is to enable compression. So that's just, again, some of the code or some of the images, making sure that those can be a little bit faster. And there's a number of other terms in here that you can go and begin to improve on. Optimizing the images. Again, if you've got, you know, very large pictures on your site with in very large dimensions, that reduces the server speed and it reduces the web page speed. So if you can reduce those image sizes and make them smaller and make your site faster, then again, from there, you'll begin to move up a little bit faster in the rankings. So those are the on-page and the technical SEO elements that you can kind of take care of. Beyond that, the next thing, when you have those things in place and you're ready to kind of, you know, take your SEO to the next level, so you've been able to review all your content, you've been able to go through everything, and you want to kind of get an SEO plan in place, the first thing that you want to look at next is to begin doing some keyword research, right? So this is the part of the process where, you know, what keywords do you think or would you like someone to type to find your business in Google? And then, so this is the first part that you want to look at. So some of the questions that you may want to have a look at here would be, you know, again, make that short list of 10 to 15 or 20 words of what people would type into Google to find your business. Look at some of the common industry questions that people might have. So when, you know, someone is looking to either buy a new car or a new home, looking to buy, you know, a new item of clothing or looking to travel, then what are some of the things that people will be looking for? What are some of the questions they would ask, and that you would want to appear in those search rankings, right? And then also, like, you know, what are some of the things or questions that people will have for the problems that you can solve? And what I'd probably recommend there when you do going through this process is maybe even ask some existing customers or ask a family member or ask someone who doesn't know very little about your business, you know, in terms of how they would describe your business or how they would find you. As you go into that process, there's a couple of different stages of content that you'll want to create. So you want to think about the buyer journey, and with that, you want to think about the awareness stage. So these would be the problem-based keywords that, again, people are going to be looking at, maybe looking for that original problem that they want to solve, and what are some of those terms and what's some of the content that you can create and what are the keywords that you want to rank for at that stage. The second stage that you want to look at is the consideration stage. So this is when someone has identified the problem they want to solve, they're beyond the awareness point, and then they're looking at kind of making a decision between several options. Again, so, you know, what are the solutions? And this is kind of like, you know, what are the features and benefits of a product? So, you know, as you kind of determine that you want a certain product, like what are the features that you want? And then are you going to show up for some of those terms for some of those products for those features or not for those features? And then there's the decision-making stage again. So this is more of the brand terms and things that are related to you. And those would be, again, making sure that you're there for your brand. But also if you've got products that are labeled under your brand or you've got different makes and models, again, like, are you able to kind of show up on the top of search results for those makes and models? So when you're looking for those terms and you're not sure, you know, you can do some initial research. Again, going back to the Google Search Console, Google will actually provide you with some of the terms that you're ranking for currently. So you might be able to find related terms that maybe people might look for. In some cases, that might be a complement to a keyword or a substitute for a keyword as well. And how can you rank for those terms? So once you've got your research done, the next piece, which is the ongoing piece, is to look at creating the content development. So one thing with SEO is that if you're not already, it's going to be super important that you begin to take time to create content and add content to your website on a regular basis. So what you want to do in this particular part of the process is to review that keyword research, right? So get that list of keywords, begin to get a map in terms of, what keywords do you think you can drive the most traffic with in the beginning? And then begin to brainstorm topics for content that you want to develop, or identify gaps of content that maybe that you don't have right now. And that's pretty easy to do. You just take those keywords that you have, you go put them in Google and see where you rank, or see if you whether you rank for them or don't rank for them at all. And then you begin to create content around that. So, with the topics, again, you begin creating content, answering those questions, reviewing competitors. As you do those searches, you're going to see your competitors pop up and what are they writing about. I think as well, one of the key things now is the how-to is super important. So that's a part of that awareness piece that we talked about for the customer journey is, people are looking on how to do something or how to solve a problem. So creating content and finding, creating content for there. One thing that we also find super helpful when you're looking at the keyword research, if you're not sure on the content that you can create, is to look at other niches and just to kind of see how perhaps someone in a different industry, how they've tackled different types of content that they created, and you can kind of get some ideas from there. So then once you have the brainstorming in place, you've got your keywords in place, some of the content that you want to create, what we'd recommend then is to begin creating an editorial calendar and just kind of, start off slow. And if that means that you're going to write one new piece of content per month, then so be it. But get that content in place. And if you, create one piece of content a month, that's 12 new pieces of content per month over the course of a year. And you begin to generate traffic and search results from that. So it's super important to do that. As you've created the content now and you've got a blog post or a new landing page that you want to create, before you launch, you want to go back and revisit those on-page SEO pieces that we talked about. So making sure you've got a meta tag or a meta description, a title tag, you've correctly named the URL, the images that you have to support the content that you're going to create are proper dimensions, small file sizes as well. So you're optimizing that page. The other thing that I'd recommend as well is that if you have been creating content on a regular basis, one thing that Google really likes right now is the people who are going back and updating content. We call them content upgrades. So that's looking at pages that maybe are performing well or are generating traffic for you, and you review that content and you begin to look through it, and maybe there's some numbers or stats or a process or something that's in place that maybe that's a little bit outdated. So you go back and you take the time to review that content, and maybe you upgrade that content to bring it more into a 2021 feel versus maybe a 2011 or 2015 or a 2008 kind of feel. So that would be a process that I'd want to have and put in place. So those are the the main points to get your SEO engine in place and all the factors that you can kind of take care of yourself. The last part that I want to go through is the off-page SEO. And these are kind of like the additional steps that you can take to get that, other people sending you website traffic or linking to you and creating that authority on your website. So from an off-page perspective, it's basically people who are linking back to you. And that may come from social media. It may come from other websites where you're actively getting people to link back to you. And then in most cases, one of the first places that you can start is to look for local business directories. And I know Allison has mentioned it in previous sessions that we've done. And I think that with the new site that's being launched, there is an opportunity for you to get your business listed in a directory. So get that done. The more of that you can do, the better the opportunity you'll have for people to discover you, and then also for Google to find you and to rank you higher in search engines. So if you're going to take the next step and you've got all the on-page pieces in place, one thing that you may want to actively look at, and this does take time, is to begin introducing a link building process. So that's basically looking for opportunities to be able to bring to have other sites link back to you. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. So one quick way you can do that is to get customers to link back to you. So if they have a website, then they can link back to you. Or if there's people that are in your community, then they can link back to you as well. One thing that we find to be super helpful is to build a company blog, is to have a company blog, and getting that content that's on your blog. Maybe there may be another blog or another website where people will share your blog as a resource. And again, that builds more authority for your website as well. So that's a potential link building strategy. Maybe you want to create content that can go viral. In some cases, we've seen people create infographics, for example, and then other people will kind of share their infographic on their website. And the more that's done, the more link authority or domain authority that you have, and the higher you'll begin to rank in search engines. Being newsworthy, again, not necessarily always the easiest thing to do, but if there's something successful in your business or a milestone or something that you're reaching, then it's super important to be newsworthy. And again, if you've been quoted in a news platform, making sure that you try to get a link on that on that article back to your website. Looking at local directories, I think there's several that are here in the province, and you can also look at things that are Canada-wide or international as well, or maybe there's niche directories depending on the business that you're in, or if you're a member of certain associations, they typically provide local directories as well. So again, looking for opportunities to get your website linked on someone else's website. So now that you have all that in place and you've got your engine up and running, I just want to kind of close off by going back to measuring success. If you're going to take the time and the energy to invest in doing SEO, or you're going to invest in email marketing like we discussed last week, or social media like we discussed a couple of weeks ago, or you have an online store, it's super important that you're measuring the success of the time and energy of things that you're putting in place. So from an SEO perspective, just two ways we typically want to measure. The first is the web analytics piece. Again, as you begin doing SEO, what you should be looking for would be an increase in organic traffic. So this is the free traffic that's coming back from search engines. So as you have this engine in place, you should begin to see more organic traffic coming from your site. And then when that happens, what you should look at next is the bounce rate. And bounce rate is basically when someone comes to your website, if they don't visit another page and they come to your website and they leave, then we call that a bounce. So you want to look at the amount of traffic that's coming to your website, and that your bounce rate is high. You need to look at an opportunity there. Maybe you got to change some of the content to reduce that bounce rate. Another indicator that we like to measure is the page visits. So if someone's coming to your website and they're finding you through Google, then you want to be able to get a sense, are they going to a second page or a third page to learn more about you, the solution to the problem that you solve. And so you should see more of that. As you continue to look at your link building, you probably will begin to see more referrals from where you've got some of those links. And then obviously what I forgot to mention in this particular piece here is also, from a web analytics perspective, is the product sales or the leads that are being generated. As you get this SEO engine up and running and in place, you should begin to see more leads, more phone calls, more sales that are happening as well. So those are all indicators of things that are trending in the right direction. And if they're not trending in the right direction, making adjustments and trying to get them back and trending in the right direction. From a pure SEO perspective itself, using you can go and you can get tools to measure your success. If you don't have the budget or the resource to go and to buy some of those tools, some of the tools that you can look at for free is the Google Search Console that we had looked at earlier. Again, if you look at the 4 metrics that were back on that screen, what you're looking for there would be more impressions. And basically, if your impressions begin to increase, that just means that the work that you're doing is working, and you're getting, you're showing up more in search engines. So people are finding you either with more keywords or you're showing up higher in rankings. So, that's a good indicator. The second indicator is that, as you begin to show up in Google search rankings, people begin to get more clicks and more traffic going back to your website. And then with those two indicators, if the impressions are high and the clicks are low, then that's your, that's your click-through rate. And if that click-through rate is not very high, then you need to go and maybe make some adjustments to your title tag or to your meta description, again, to attract more people to click on your link to come back to you. And then obviously, if you're going through the process, you also want to be tracking your ranking. Now, this is not such a big factor as it used to be in the past, because depending on location where you are, search terms, for example, your rank can vary, but it'll kind of give you a range of whether or not you're on that first page, second page, and what you want to be looking for. Are you trending up, and what are some of the adjustments that you're making in terms of how you're trending and what you can do from there. And then, like anything that you do from a digital marketing perspective, you rinse and repeat. Once you kind of have your SEO engine up and running, you don't set it and forget it. You kind of continue working on it, and you look for continuous improvement. So that's a lot to cover in, about 50 minutes. A lot of talking on my side, and I'm just going to open it up for questions anyone may or may not have.